My core belief is that the best salesperson is the one who asks the best questions. And I think this is worth talking about because from my experience, most salespeople do not ask enough questions or do not ask good questions. And I have that belief based on my experience as being a prospect who salespeople reach out to every day, but also my experience as working as a salesperson, where I have a lot of examples where I made calls or met with prospects on meetings and I either did not ask good questions or I wasn't prepared with the right questions to ask. And I can give you many different examples of this, but one in particular that I think paints this picture pretty well is when I was working for a company called Kronos and I was selling workforce management software. I scheduled a meeting with one of my top accounts. It was a retail business that sold electronics, and they were a great long-time customer, and they were actually using the legacy version of our software. I thought, you know what, I can just go out to this meeting, and there's an opportunity there. There's a lot to talk about with upgrading them, and once we upgrade them, there's probably a lot of cross-selling of add-on modules that can take place. So I just went out and met with my customer, and to be honest with you, after the initial pleasantries and asking about how everything is going with their existing products, I ran into a wall and I really did not know what to say and ask in order to drive the conversation towards them upgrading, because I thought we would naturally progress there. I thought they would be interested or be asking about it, but they were pretty happy and everything was fine. And after trying to talk about the latest version and that not going anywhere, I really did not know what to say or ask to get the prospect interested or to find an opportunity of something to sell to this customer. And the key mistake that I made is that I should have been prepared with questions to ask. And so not only was this a missed opportunity, but I probably did not give off a good impression. So in that example, I did not ask good questions. But in my defense, I can say that the company I was working for really did not train me on what questions to ask. They trained me on the product and all of its features and how it all works. So I think it's understandable that I went into a meeting just ready to talk about the product and not really prepared for how to learn about the prospect. And this sales training program solves that problem if you haven't figured that out already. And we're going to do that in this video because we are at the step in this process where we are going to create an optimized set of questions to ask for your product or service. And where we left off with this process, in the last video, we created an optimized set of pain points for your product or service. And now we are going to create an optimized set of questions to ask. And the first set of questions we want to create are what we refer to as pain questions. These are questions that help you to learn about the pain your prospects are having, so we can actually bring back at this point our pain points we created on the last step. And for each pain point, what we can do is we can very easily create a question to ask. And this step should be very simple. For example, let's say you sell pillows and your pillows help people to sleep better at night. So that solves the problem of tossing and turning and not sleeping well. So the pain point is tossing and turning. If that's the pain point, we should ask a question of how often do you find yourself tossing and turning? How well are you sleeping at night? So that connection there is very simple. All we have to do is look at the pain point and we can very easily create a question to figure out how the prospect is doing in that area. And staying with our demonstration example of web design services, this process leads us to creating these pain questions. And I'm not going to read these questions in detail and talk about if these questions are perfect in detail, but what I want you to take away is the connection here. So for demonstration purposes, the pain points for our web design services is that they solve the problems that small businesses, there's a lot of them that have websites that are not performing well. They're not generating leads. They're not getting enough traffic. They don't look good. And what we sell helps with those pain points. So for each of those, we want to create questions to ask. So this process leads us to creating questions that ask people how their website is doing. How is it performing in the area of generating leads, getting good traffic? How does it look? How easy is it to navigate? So using this process, if this helps you to create an optimized set of pain points, again, pain points that are aligned with the audience you're communicating with, the audience you're trying to sell to, then following this process will also help you to create an optimized set of pain questions to ask, questions that, again, are aligned with the target audience you are communicating with. A second category of questions we want to create are what we refer to as current state questions. These are questions that help you to learn about what the prospect is doing in the area where your product or service fits. Now, these questions will change for every product or service, so I can't tell you what current state questions to ask, but I can give you the general areas that you want to ask about. You want to find out, is the prospect currently using, or if they've recently purchased what you sell. You want to find out who they're purchasing from or who their current provider is. There are probably details you want to gather in terms of the current processes or systems. You might want to learn about people in the organization, existing contracts. There are probably details you'd like to gather in terms of the size of different things on the prospect side, the current performance. So for demonstration purposes, staying with the same product of web design services, we want to find out if they're already working with a provider that is helping them to update and improve their website. We maybe want to find out how many websites they have. We want to find out performance details relating to current leads that are generated, deals being closed, traffic that's coming in. And I'm actually going to give you some other categories of questions to ask. These are actually what I refer to as qualifying questions. I'm not going to talk about these individual questions too much in this video because we actually will talk about qualifying in a later video in the sales training program. But since this video is about questions, asking good questions, I'm going to share these questions with you now so that you have them, and I'm going to flip through them really quickly. So if you want to pause the video to read them or to copy them, feel free to do that. But the first category of questions is need to purchase. These are questions that measure how much the prospect actually needs to purchase the product you sell. Ability to purchase. These are questions that help you to measure how strong the prospect is in the area of being able to purchase what you sell from a funding or money standpoint. Authority to purchase. These are questions that help you to assess how strong the prospect is in terms of decision-making power. Intent to purchase. This is figuring out if the prospect intends to purchase from you. Here are some questions to help you to figure out what their desired state is and what direction they want to go. And here are some questions to learn more about the prospect's organization if you're selling B2B. And here are some closing questions, and I also won't talk about these in too much detail because we will talk about closing in a module towards the end of the training program. But just to provide you with these questions, again, because this module is about questions, here are some trial closing questions you can ask. Here are some soft closing questions. And here are some hard closing questions. Now, I just gave you a lot of different categories of questions, and I can actually show you when you should ask those different categories of questions. It's really only your pain questions and current state questions that you want to ask during a cold call because a cold call is very short, and you really don't need to ask a lot of those other questions at this point in the sales process. After you open the cold call, ask a couple pain questions. If those don't go well and aren't productive, you could then transition to ask some of your current state questions. I think this flow of pain questions first and current state questions second works really well in most cases. But if you sell something that's more commoditized, for example, if you sell payroll outsourcing, that could be viewed as a more commoditized service, meaning a lot of customers already have it. Most prospects know what it is. With that type of product or service, it can be good to open with your current state questions. For example, again, if you're selling payroll outsourcing, you could open with, hey, are you guys currently outsourcing payroll? Or are you doing it in-house? That's a very productive question to ask before you say anything else, and that would be an example of leading with your current state questions. We can also use those building blocks and those blocks of questions to ask for an appointment script or for an outline of what to talk about when you're meeting with prospects. For example, this is something that would have helped me tremendously when I had that appointment with that electronics retailer that I shared earlier. And I think a good flow for the appointment is to open with your current state questions. So while in most cases, cold calls are good to open with your pain questions, I think that when you're sitting down or when you're having an online meeting with a prospect, I think a great way to open is to start to learn about the prospect and what they're doing today regarding where your product fits, and your current state questions do a great job of that. And after you learn about them, then you can transition to trying to figure out if they're having challenges in that particular area, and your pain questions are great at that. And it's at this point in our appointment where we could start to qualify the prospect, and do that by asking some of those qualifying questions that I shared with you earlier. And a great place to put that is in the second half of your appointment. You can also use a lot of these questions as responses to many of the common objections. For example, if you're cold calling, you are definitely going to run into objections like, I'm not interested, we already used someone today, we're not making any changes, we don't have any budget right now. And these can not only be difficult objections to get around, but they can be difficult objections to know what to say. And these questions give you responses, not only responses that keep the conversation going, but responses that have a good chance of getting around the objection. For example, if you face any of these objections, you can respond with your pain questions by saying something like, oh, I understand, but if I could ask you real quick, how important is it for you guys to increase your website traffic? And what I did right there is I kept the call going, and the prospect is going to have some sort of response, and I can either follow up with another question based on their response, or maybe the prospect said something that indicated that they might have a need or room for improvement or a pain point, and then I can use that as a justification for talking more, and I can close for the next step in my sales process, which is closing the prospect on having a longer conversation in the form of an appointment or a meeting on another day. And you can respond to these same objections also with your current state questions. So as you can see, this process can help you to create an optimized set of questions to ask. And if you're looking at this and thinking, man, that looks time consuming, or I don't know if I can go through that, we do have an option for an AI tool that will help you to create all of your questions. In SalesScripter, there's an area called the Sales Message Builder, completely aligns with the steps that I'm taking you through in this training program. And you can manually enter the details for your product or service, or you can use AI to create your sales message in a matter of just a few seconds. And all you have to do is enter the product or service you sell. And for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to put accounting services. And then it asks you the target audience you're communicating with. And just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to put doctors' offices. And if I click start, what's going to happen now is the software of SalesScripter is going to communicate with ChatGPT and take ChatGPT through all of the different steps of our sales message brainstorming process, asking it, when we sell this product to this target audience, what are the key features? What are the ways we might be different? What are the benefits we have to offer that target audience? What are some pain points we can help to solve? What are some pain questions we can ask? And what are some current state questions we can ask? So in a matter of seconds, we're able to have our sales message, and ChatGPT does a really good job of sales copywriting and then following our instructions to create a really good sales message. And pertaining to what we're talking about here, which is questions, here we have our pain questions and current state questions. And then the software uses those building blocks to create a whole library of sales scripts and email messages. And so if I show you real quick, here is a cold call script that uses those different building blocks. And after we open the call, here are pain questions, here are our current state questions, and then over here are objections that are sure to come up. Like I mentioned, I'm not interested. And here are responses to those objections created by the software and the AI. Here are pain questions to ask when that objection comes up. Here are current state questions to ask. So as you can see, the mixture of our sales message brainstorming process combined with the AI of ChatGPT, and then combined with our library of templates filled in with what is created by all of that, can really help you to improve your ability to not only ask good questions, but to be able to remember what questions to ask in all of the different situations you find yourself in when you're talking to sales prospects. So your homework for this training module is to simply brainstorm 3 to 6 pain questions for your product or service. And that is pretty much it. In the next training module, we will talk about how to use customer examples and storytelling to build interest, establish credibility, and generate leads. And if you don't know, this full training program is already on YouTube. If you go to our YouTube channel, then go to playlist, then go to the Smart Sales System, there are videos for all of the training modules of our sales training program. And if this video has helped you at all and you want to return the favor, very easy to do. All you have to do is like, comment, share our video, subscribe to our channel. Any of those help us, and none of those cost you anything. And if you have questions or you want more information, the best place to go is salescriptor.com. Thanks for being here. Hope this was helpful, and we look forward to seeing you on the next video. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.